What's up, everybody? Kyle here, and yesterday I watched Captain Marvel, and my goodness, that was a hype movie. There were a ton of awesome parts of it, and this is gonna be like a review from my perspective of it. Sure, I'm not gonna go into as in depth as some other things or whatever, and I also want to touch on some aspects of other people's reviews as well. But yeah, this is just sort of my thoughts on the movie after seeing it. But yeah, right off the bat, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it fit well into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I thought that they did a really good job of making Captain Marvel feel like a MCU superhero, right? So off the bat, let's talk about Carol Danvers, or Veers, as you know she's called by the Kree, right? So first of all, this is gonna have a lot of spoilers in it, so just if you haven't seen the movie and stuff like that, go watch it. Then you can come back if you want. You don't have to come back, but just watch the movie first, and then then we can talk more about it in the comments. So the Carol Danvers, her origin story per se in the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't really anything like the comics, but I thought it was good. So for those of you who don't know, in the comics, Captain Marvel, or Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, gets her powers from Captain Mar-Vell, who is a Kree soldier that he just gives her powers because he's going to die from cancer. This might be a little off. This is the stuff that I've read. This is what it is. But he's going to die, and he gifts Carol Danvers his powers and stuff like that. And so in this movie, it was quite a bit different than that. To start off, that Mar-Vell was a scientist by the name of Dr. Lawson. Here on Earth, looking for Pegasus, which is a combination between NASA and the U.S. Air Force. And Mar-Vell was trying to develop a light-speed engine in this movie, and she was recruiting different, like Air Force pilots and things like that. And Carol Danvers was one of them, and with that, Mar-Vell made this light speed engine, this aircraft, and what happened with it was, they got shot down by a spacecraft. At first, we don't know what it is, but she got shot down by a spacecraft, and the next thing you know, Carol Danvers was taken to the Kree. So what happens in this is, because in this movie, Carol Danvers doesn't know what is going on, how she even became Kree. She just remembers that 6 years prior that she just ended up on the Kree home planet of Hala, and that she's been living her life as a Kree soldier since. But what happened was that Mar-Vell was in the light speed engine spacecraft or whatever that she made with Carol Danvers, and they got shot down by a Kree warship that was looking for Mar-Vell because she was a traitor, and we'll find out more about that in a little bit. But she's shot down or whatever, and instead of having let the Kree take the lightspeed engine, which is they're looking for, Carol Danvers shoots it, and the explosion is absorbed in her, giving her superpowers and the ability to all these powers and stuff like the photon blasts and all these things that Carol Danvers can do as Captain Marvel. That's how she gets her powers. And so that was a cool nod, in my opinion, for instead of having Captain Mar-Vell just grant her the powers and stuff like that, passing it on, have it be like giving the powers but in a slightly different way. So I thought that was kind of cool. It really put a different spin on it. It put a more logical spin than you would expect. And for the MCU, it works really well, because instead of having to explain who Captain Mar-Vell was and being how he was a traitor for the Kree, they did it a different way, and that was sort of the way that I didn't expect too. So the first half of the movie, they make the Skrulls seem villainous, right? And Talos, first of all, his Skrull character, phenomenal acting job. He did fantastic work with it. But, halfway through the movie, you find out, the Skrulls are just looking for a home and stuff like that. And sure, like the not all the Skrulls, but the Talos' Skrulls and his colony, I guess, they are just looking for a home. And we find out that Mar-Vell was actually housing them in her laboratory in orbit around Earth, and that the Kree were actually looking for them in order to, kill them, but also, this is probably the craziest part, this is one of the craziest parts I didn't even see coming, was the fact that the Lightspeed engine was based around the Tesseract, right? So, I don't want to jump to that real fast, but the Skrulls are really good. They did a fantastic job incorporating them, explaining their powers, because obviously, a lot of the viewers of the MCU aren't going to know what Skrulls are, so they did a good job of working that around. So let's jump back to the Tesseract real fast. So let's look at this chronologically. So in Captain America: First Avenger, Captain America goes down to the ship of Hydra after Red Skull touches the Tesseract and is transported. And we don't even know what happens at that point, but we find out in Infinity War, of course. But so he goes down with the ship, and we see in a post-credit scene for, I forget what movie it is. I think it might be Thor, or it might just be the post-credit scene of First Avenger. I don't know, but we see Howard Stark go to what it seems like the Arctic, and excavate down and grab the Tesseract, because the Tesseract fell out of the ship or whatever that Captain America is piloting. So it's in a different place than Captain America is. So we see Howard Stark recover the Tesseract. So what's interesting then is, if that's based around, let's say, because Howard Stark dies in December 16th, 1991. That's what we found out in Civil War. That means that, that he dies before Captain Marvel takes place. So, then we have to start looking at, in that gap, obviously he got the Tesseract. And then what happened in order to make Dr. Lawson get it and put it up on her laboratory. So, that's something that the details on that is a little confusing. And, they could at some point explain that, but I don't think they need to. I thought it was a good touch to show that, the Tesseract is really how Captain Marvel got her powers. Because, the Lightspeed engine that exploded was based on energy from the Tesseract. So, I thought it was good. And also it explains in that part of the movie how Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. got their hands on it. Even though technically S.H.I.E.L.D. would have their hands on it then too, maybe, if Howard Stark was still working under S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know if at that point he'd be working with Stark Industries or not, but or what his motives would be with the Tesseract. But we know how S.H.I.E.L.D. got the Tesseract, and then that eventually leads to the Avengers, where they start off with the Tesseract. They're just trying to study it and stuff like that, and then Loki comes in and steals it. But yeah, I thought that was cool to have the Tesseract in there. And speaking of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, Nick Fury, fantastic addition, and that just really gets me excited for, say, Spider-Man: Far From Home, because obviously Nick Fury is going to play a crucial role in that too. But Nick Fury was a really standout character in this movie, just because it showed a different side to him, I guess, a more trusting, a not so hey, I gotta go into hiding every 5 seconds Nick Fury, which it was pretty cool. Part of the movie, especially at the very end of the movie, they made they sort of did what Marvel's been doing. They made jokes about sort of stuff, which started really with the Ragnarok, in which we saw Thor's character sort of transition to a goofier, silly version. Which it works for some characters. At the end of Captain Marvel and throughout it, especially with Nick Fury's relationship with Goose, which we'll get to Goose in a second, that made him seem sort of a little less serious, I guess, more silly per se. Sure, I'm fine with the whole thing with hey, Goose, petting him and all this sort of stuff. Because I mean, that's some people are like with the cats. I guess like I'm that way with dogs. But you know, at the very end when he gets his eye scratched, and that's how he has his eye, and he has to get the eye patch and stuff like that. I thought that was sure. I mean, everyone knew that this is going to be the story how Nick Fury gets his eye patch and all that sort of stuff. But to have it be from Goose scratching him, and just that part was, it sure was funny in the moment, but it kind of, I'm not feeling it that much. Especially because, you know, in I think it's Winter Soldier or whatever, when they're taking down S.H.I.E.L.D. and he has to show his eye, and he's like, or like they make references to like, hey, I trusted someone once. And does that mean that, you know, he trusted Goose, and Goose is the one that betrayed him in that sense? Like, I don't know. It's kind of interesting, but yeah. But speaking of Goose though, Goose was one of my favorite parts of the movie. I don't know. I just not to hit too hard from home, but I used to have a orange tabby cat like that, and you know, I thought that it made a really fun side to it, just to be like, especially with Nick Fury's aspect, like how he comes and says, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna love you and pet you and all this sort of stuff, and that was pretty cool. I also liked the twist with Goose being a Flarvin. I forget what the exact pronunciation of it was, but having him not just be a cat, but like, you know, have this like giant tentacle monster inside of him, which makes you think, and they touched on in the movie is like, are all cats like that? Which is interesting. So, but yeah. One more thing I want to touch on before we talk about some other stuff was Maria Rambeau, which was Carol Danvers' best friend, and Monica Rambeau, who was Maria's daughter. So technically, Carol Danvers was sort of not the exact aunt, but like pretty much like acted as an aunt figure for Maria's daughter Monica. So the thing about that then is, I don't know if you guys know, but Monica Rambeau is actually a character in Marvel Comics that goes by the Spectrum, and you can actually go check out Comics Explained video on Too Powerful for the MCU Spectrum, which, you know, it's a good video, and it talks about a lot about who the Spectrum is. But I think that, you know, we could see Spectrum come to the Marvel Cinematic Universe through Carol Danvers and stuff like that, because if this movie takes place in 1995, because the year that Carol had her crash was 89, it's 6 years past that, so it takes place in 1995. At that point, Monica Rambeau will be sort of a grown-up figure in today's era, so like saying after Endgame, right? I think it's possible that, you know, once Carol Danvers comes back to Earth in Endgame, she might stay a little bit, she might catch up with Maria, who's going to be older, and Monica, who's also going to be older, and, you know, something's going to happen. Monica something happen to her, and Monica will get powers, and I think that would be a good addition to having a Captain Marvel sequel, because I honestly can't see a Captain Marvel sequel come in between the original Captain Marvel, so 1995, and Endgame, which happens like 2018, 2019, in that range. I can't see having a Captain Marvel in between there, but I can see one being after the events of Endgame, going on and her being more close to Earth, maybe doing some stuff with Guardians of the Galaxy, who knows. But I can see that in that point happening, and something goes wrong on Earth, and Monica gets powers and becomes the Spectrum, which would be an easy addition. You don't have to make her super overpowered, like they discussed in the Comics Explained video, but, you know, I think that it'd be a good addition, another way to get another supporting character to Captain Marvel in the MCU, and that would sort of like with Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? You know, it might have been hard to make another movie just with Ant-Man, but having the Wasp in there to sort of like co-star really helped with that movie, and going forward with the Ant-Man and sort of things that Dr. Pym and all and his like wife are trying to do with the quantum realm and all this sort of stuff, which is good. So, but yeah, I definitely think that the Spectrum should come to the MCU and will be a great addition for that then. So, one more thing I wanted to touch on before we touch on end credit scenes is Carol Danvers' powers in this. So I was super happy with it. Some people say that Carol Danvers is crazy powerful, and they're like, yeah, she's just gonna like be the one to like defeat Thanos like instantly and stuff like that. And yeah, we see some of that stuff, especially at the end of the movie when she gets the power dampening thing off of her neck, and she starts wrecking the Kree and Ronan ships and all that sort of stuff. And I also want to talk about Ronan, but that'll take a second. But so like her powers are insane. Like when she it seemed like she went binary almost at the very end of it, and I was insanely happy with that. And I think that while she might not be the most overpowered character, I think that they did a great job of representing her powers and that sort of stuff. And what I want to see too is we actually see her touch the Tesseract and like touch it with her bare hands, which makes me think that in Endgame she might be the one to wield the Infinity Gauntlet. Obviously she might have the power to do that, because obviously Red Skull, someone like him, even though he had the super soldier serum or whatever, right? When he touched the Tesseract in Captain America: First Avenger, he just went to Volmir, and he just is like, oh my gosh, people thought he died and stuff like that. So obviously he wasn't able to wield the Tesseract, but she comes along, and on Dr. Lawson's Marvel's lab, she just takes the Tesseract, picks it up, and puts it into a lunchbox. Meaning she can like hold and touch the Tesseract, which is crazy to think about, right? So that means that if she can handle one Infinity Stone by herself, it's possible that she could be the one to take the Infinity Gauntlet and be able to use it in order to unverse the snap and stuff like that, which would be crazy cool. But also I wanted to touch on Ronan, and so at the end of the movie, Ronan says, hey, we need to get the weapon, and instead of this time talking about the Tesseract as the weapon, he means Captain Marvel, which puts a different spin on, say, like Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Because in Guardians of the Galaxy, he's looking for the Power Stone, which is the orb, and which makes you think, is he getting the Power Stone in order to better fight Captain Marvel? It's just something that puts a new perspective on Guardians of the Galaxy 1, just having this sort of a prequel before it, which is pretty cool. So I kind of want to go back and watch Guardians of the Galaxy 1 now, see if there's any more hints to what Ronan's plans were, and see what happens with that. So let's touch on the end credit scenes. The last credit scene was just Goose puking up the Tesseract, which that was comedic, and it was really gross. Let's be honest, it was really gross, and yeah, that was fine. But then we actually got what I'm pretty sure is going to be an actual scene from Endgame. So we see Steve Rogers and Black Widow mourning the loss of people, and they're like, hey, this is a nightmare. I don't think they even have a plan at all. But then War Machine, Rhodey, comes in and is like, hey, that thing just turned off, which was the pager that we see throughout the movie of Captain Marvel that she suits up to give to Nick Fury, and it's like, hey, only use it for emergencies. And then he uses it in Infinity War, obviously, as we know, which, hey, that's a pretty big emergency, so it makes sense. So we see that, and the light just goes off, which is interesting because they're talking about, like, hey, they had the battery hooked up in order to make it so the thing wouldn't turn off, so just keep on sending that signal. But then, when it stops sending the signal, they're like, oh gosh, what is happening? And then all of a sudden, the camera pans over behind, so it has Steve Rogers, it has Rhodey and Natasha Romanoff in the frame, right? And it just pans over, and Carol Danvers is standing right there, and she's like, where's Fury? And that was epic. That is gonna be awesome to see her and how her reactions with the Avengers is gonna be, because to me she feels pretty confident, and good for her for being super confident and stuff like that, right? And I feel like they're gonna talk about Thanos, and she's gonna be like, yep, I have to go after him right now. But that might backfire and stuff like that. But I still think that Captain Marvel is gonna be the one to save Tony and not Gamora, Nebula from space. They're gonna be like, hey, Tony went off to space and we haven't heard from him yet. And then, or they might get a signal from him, and she'll be like, okay, I'll go grab him, and like it'll be like, boom, she'll go grab him. It'll be no time at all, because you know she can go pretty fast at the end of Captain Marvel. I bet you when she gets more attuned to her powers and stuff like that, she will be able to push them to their limits and stuff like that, and she's gonna be insane during Endgame, which I am stoked to see. That is gonna be awesome. So yeah, guys, that is what I have so far for Captain Marvel. I thought it was a great movie. Brie Larson was a fantastic Captain Marvel, and I am super excited to see her in Endgame. And that is just gonna be excited. Nick Fury was awesome. I can't wait to see him more in Far From Home. Take a role with Peter Parker, and yeah, I am beyond pumped for Endgame. I am so happy about it. And yeah, okay, a couple more things, because I was looking back, editing my audio from earlier, and there's a couple things I wanted to touch on as well. So the reviews for Captain Marvel have been pretty not good, I guess. I don't know. There's been a lot of people that have really loved the movie, and it should be praised. This movie is awesome. But there's some people that are looking at it. They're looking at it from the wrong point of view. So people are saying, "Oh, it's just a feminist movie, all this sort of stuff." And you know, yeah, sure, Captain Marvel is a female character, but you know, does it matter all that much? So I don't know. To me, I think people are just looking at it at the wrong way, and yeah, I don't know. I think that people just need to change, I guess. If people think it's that much of a problem to have a female superhero, and to have some moments where, you know, yeah, she falls down, and you know, in that time period, obviously, you know, women didn't have the same like luxuries as men, and you know, it hits on that, but it doesn't hit you like across the side of the head with it. It's subtle. And then I think the big part about it that, you know, people are looking at it wrong is they show scenes of her and throughout her life before, you know, the whole explosion and all that sort of stuff, where she's fallen down, things hasn't gone right, but at the end of the day she gets back up. And I think that's really important, not just because of it's a superhero movie, but that's just a real life important thing. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of people being like, oh, that's just feminist stuff like that. And obviously I can't change people, and I can't change their point of view on it, but that's just really how I feel about it. So that's my 2 cents about how other people have felt about the movie. So yeah, Brie Larson, you are fantastic. You are a great person, and keep it up. Don't let people's negative feelings get you down. And Captain Marvel was a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. If you do watch it, let me know down in the comments below. I'm not gonna ask you to subscribe or to like anything, but thanks for watching. I will check you later. Don't forget to crack your eggs.